how the hell did we get here?
Yeah.
I want you, in your words, to backtrack and trace how the hell did we end up on this pink picnic table?
I think we had a conversation about, music journalism and artistry, how artists get the chance to express themselves. A lot of times, it's all on their own terms. They put out videos, they're not questioned, they're not challenged, and I think you kind of had an appetite for doing something where we could sit across from each other and we could talk about your growth in a real, not investigative form, but, an interview type format. That was my understanding of the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Today, the first thing I'll say is I promise you I'll be as honest as possible, as open as possible, and nothing is off limits. I'm here to talk about everything and anything that you want to talk about, and I trust that you're going to guide this ship wherever it should go.
You clearly have a serious level of confidence that not a lot of people have. Where does that come from?
So I was born in India. I moved to Singapore. I moved to Malaysia. I moved to New York, Westchester County. And the thread that I have that I feel is just almost this really lucky. I've been lucky and very privileged my whole life. And I want to also be open about that. And that led to an ability to take risks that I have that other people don't. The ability to know that I have a fallback option that's comfortable. I was on this app Clubhouse, and I was asked, what are you most grateful for? And my answer was my family's belief in me that made me believe in myself. Because that being 51% over was the reason I just committed to jumping. And that's all I think. I'm a very insecure person. I just believe in what I believe.
Let's go back 5 years, right? Talk about an ultimate jump. You're starting a company from the ground up. 5 years, right? Something like that. This is a company that, mind you, has been featured or mentioned in, the likes of Complex, Rolling Stone. It's put artists on the map that wouldn't normally be, put on the map in that way. At the inception of Indify,
yeah,
what was your thinking? You just wanted to help other artists out?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question, because I think that's a good place to write the ship. It's in high school, me and my best friends, my co-founders, would just be obsessed with music online. So we were on Good Music All Day, This Song Is Sick, Camelback, Two Dope Boys, Now Right, and that was the world, these blogs that people had. I'm starting to see this ecosystem because we're internet kids, and I'm trying to get on these blogs. I'm born in the era of music growing up online.
Yeah.
And I start to talk to A&Rs who are label scouts, and this is 2014, and I realized I'm how do you guys find artists? And because there was just no better system, they would go to these same blogs that we were in high school, written by 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-year-old kids that
those
are
kids were the gatekeepers.
Those
kids,
kids
high school kids were doing.
We're dictating who was signed for millions of dollars. I didn't try to start a company, and that's the thing. Is my plan was always to be an artist. I just started working with my best friends to try to make a more democratized discovery system for artists, where the thesis was crazy at the time. Can we predict the next big music stars using an algorithm?
So, you secure funding from Colgate, this Shark Tank.
Grant money, yeah.
Grant money. You moved to your parents' basement. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's one thing to believe you should blow up, or your music should be heard. Imagine your music is getting people to come out. You have fans, you have listeners, you have people wanting to listen to you, and still, because you don't have the relationships, you don't have the parent or cousin or whatever in the music industry, you don't have the relationship to the blogger that if they opened your email out of 10 million, right? I remember in October 2015, Matt, our CTO, the wizard, he's unbelievable what he does. And he was playing 9 positions on the field. He built the whole first version of Indify himself. He created some way to track 40,000 artists. The first month he's doing that, we start to it starts to identify. It's the first time we've been in the game of identifying artists. And what Connor does is he was writing an article every single day about an artist that was doing well on the platform. He was hey Shav, check this out. There's this artist named Kai, and I go down the rank, and he's number 55. And this is the first time it's working, and I'm all right, cool. And I listen to it, and it's super raw and acoustic, and it's on SoundCloud. It has 60,000 plays. This kid spoke to us. All of us were just listening on repeat. So we were you know what? We love him so much. let's get on the phone with him. And it's a artist that the platform was saying is doing well, but still there's a human element of like reading between the lines. And it was organic. And we get on the phone and he's like, I'm 17, I'm from El Paso, Texas. I was like, where did you record? And he was like, I would record on my cell phone. And he was like talking about how in school, like people were kind of making fun of him or teasing him, and how like he was, thinking about being a music teacher. And it was this very open conversation. And I find that with a lot of artists that they just really can open up. But we were like, are you like on any music blogs or on any like press? Like, how are you getting these streams? He's like, no, like it's just local kids in El Paso. Like they're streaming it, they're sharing it. And, we were like, look, like we're here to help and support in any way we can, like whatever we can do. And so we end up doing this piece with Pigeons and Planes in November 2015. And we featured Kai, the artist, K-A-I exclamation point on it. And like he's one of like 20 artists featured on there. Next thing we know, he flies to Atlanta, he meets his manager, he gets a good team, and he changes his name to Khalid, which is his real name, becomes one of the biggest artists in the world. We get to watch that whole rise and learn from him, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for his friendship and mentorship for us as a team, and the people around him, Courtney Stewart, Tunji. Because we got to watch them do what they do, we learned so much. And that was when things started to really like take off. At that point, it was electric. It was like, Billie Eilish at 13 years old we featured. I remember
13 years old.
Yeah, when SoundCloud Rap came out, I thought Connor had like 10 heads on his shoulder, and that's why he's so good, because he was like, we gotta feature these artists. I'm like, what are these artists? And boom, like next thing you know, like the whole industry is kind of moving towards that. And then bedroom pop, which was something that was like closer to home, is something I really love. A lot of those artists, and they don't love that term. We start kind of being early on that, and we start to realize that like, all of these companies, major labels, start subscribing to the tool. And not only are the right artists, the artists that are resonating with fans, artists that are really like generating an audience, being seen, but next thing we know, like a lot of people start really taking our editorial and our rank seriously. And if you jump up on one of those, it can really like spark your value.
Is there ever a time where you're looking at the algorithm, you're looking at the data, and you almost forget the artistry behind it? Like you're looking at numbers, and you're dictating their worth based on the number that they have. Do you ever catch yourself and you're like, okay, hold on, this is a kid who's making music in his or her bedroom?
That's a good question.
And they're doing their best.
Our first principle is artists first always.
Yeah.
We say that every single day, and there are days that you get farther from that, and I'm not proud of those days. Because I'm an artist, it's a lot easier. Right. And that's the thing that I think people don't get, and I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder still, is that like everybody since the jump I felt like told me I couldn't be an artist as well. Everyone was like, you can't do both. And everyone was like, how is this gonna work? But the truth is, I don't think one works without the other. Why should the person in charge of who is getting opportunities in music be a white male executive in an office versus a person of color that is an artist themselves? Like, for me, that, like, yeah. I and like to say that, like, that's hurtful to me when I feel like people tell me that I can't do something, but that only makes me want to do something more.
So who's telling you you can't do it? Like the industry?
Probably myself. After all that, probably myself. So I can double back and tell you a bit about, like, on the artist side, kind of how things came about. But I've been making music my whole life, and I think throughout this process of building Indify and how grateful I was for it sparking up earlier, I was making music every day. I was still doing that. I've never stopped doing that my whole life. And when I think back to those moments, especially like 3-4 years ago, I was in a very dark place because I wasn't accepting myself. I was telling myself, oh, I'm doing this, no one will ever take me seriously as an artist. And it took a pretty sad incident, or like weird incident for me, like, to wake up to the fact that, like, you can't do both. And for me, I mean, I'll talk about that. Like, I was in a really dark headspace. Like, I was pitching, and I think there are things with the tech industry that are, like, tough. Like, you go out, you pitch, it's like you dance in these rooms and you hope that somebody will say yes. But most of the time, especially when you're a first-time founder, especially when you're out of college, especially when you're in music at the time, we probably got 1,000 no's. right? Like I was pitching multiple people every day to get funding, and it was just no after no after no. We're running out of money. Amidst it all, like I feel like I'm not able to express myself creatively because I feel like my back is against the wall. I feel like people will judge me in the industry where like nobody really cares. And amidst that, I had this like completely normal like bacterial infection. I went to the doctor. They like documented it, and they gave me this medicine. And I don't know if it was the medicine or what, but like I started spiraling into a really dark place. And it got to a point where I for like 8 months, and I haven't really talked about this much. I like convinced myself I was gonna die for 8 months, and I believed that so much so I think I convinced other people. It was like I was wearing black every day. I like was so tired. I was shouting at my family. I was the same way I can be like a ball of energy positively. I was really a black hole,
just suppressing all that energy.
Yeah, and I think it was just a lot of stuff piling up and feeling like I had nowhere to go, and feeling like I was in a box, feeling like I had my back against the wall, feeling like I was not able to be myself. And it was, I think, almost entirely self-imposed. It was me denying the itch of music because I felt for some reason that would be wrong of me to be an artist.
Why wrong?
It just always felt like this thing where like
having your cake.
You're just the data guy. You're just the data guy. And I think that comes from just like stereotypes, but like the singing thing I was definitely made fun of. Like I'm like a 5'6" like Indian kid growing up. Ever since I was a kid, I knew that I was very different from the people around me. And I forget exactly the timeline, but I saw Frank perform at Panorama. And he's up there and he's sitting at this like tiny keyboard playing Good Guy, kneeling, and there's like 30, 50,000, however many people dead silent. Like you could hear like a phone ring. And it's beautiful and it's intimate and it's soft and it melts you. And I see Call Me By Your Name and I see Timothée Chalamet, I see this movie, and I'm like, it's beautiful, it's soft, it melts you. And after that, I remember I walked into a salon in Scarsdale and I hear like moms like basically like chirping other moms just like behind the scenes, which was
it was one of those places that everyone knew each other. They knew you were walking in.
Well, they were like I was like I want my nails white.
Right.
And they were like, you want your nails painted? And I was like, yes, and I want them white. And they like made some offhand remark. I just kind of toughed through it, and I was like red in the face, and I got my nails painted. And I remember I got sandwiches and came back to the office, and people looked at me and they were like, what did you do? They're like, my nails are blinding white. And this is like 2 years ago. In about 5 minutes, they were like made fun of me for 2 minutes because they're my best friends, but in 5 minutes, nobody cared. After I got my nails painted, I hung out with my friend Sage Baptiste, and we wrote the song White Nails the day after. And then we wrote the song Is It Raining Where You Are? And then I meet Mike Irish, and the way Mike Irish works at Shift Recording, he took everything else away. He was just like, go in front of the microphone, just do whatever. And I'm like, you don't want me to like write something and go and plan and whatever? He's like, no, just go in front of the microphone and do something. And I hummed like, and next thing I know, he starts playing the notes like a symphony. And then I start singing over that. And it's just this explosion of like, I fought, and we're here, and I believe. I drove for miles and miles and miles and miles. I called you on 2 phones, I was begging. Pictures in my head like a movie. I'm shooting like a star, I'm like 2-3. Like, for me, that was the moment where like, it was 10 years in the making of like, 15 years since being in high school or middle school, all the way to that moment where I dreamt of being in the studio with that level of just like comfort. And in 15 minutes, the song wrote itself. And Mike and I ended the day and we're like, I don't know, we don't know if that's good. It just happened. And I was like, I probably have to rewrite the lyrics. I wasn't thinking about the lyrics. And the next day, we make Forerunner. And the first one was Ultraviolet. The next day we make Forerunner. 2 days later we make Ohm. Or no, we make Best Friends. And then we were so gassed, we made Ohm. And then we made 80s. And then we made Supernova. And
this is all within a span of what?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Writing, producing, recording.
Yeah, at least like the first elements. Then we took months to get it right. But it was an explosion.
So I think
and I have no idea how it happened. I still have no idea how to explain it, but it was euphoria. It was bliss. Right. And after that, I started wearing all white every day again. Like I was fixed, and that's all it was. And I think that to me, the music is bright, but it's equally from the context of dark. And that's to me why a lot of people resonate with it. It fixed me, it picked me up. I hope that it can do that for others, and that's the only reason that I'm here.
Talk about the meaning of Too Pretty for Sunshine, your album, what your music means to you, and how growing up impacted.
The point that that came out in my music is freedom. For me, I am a kid, ultimately, that was born in New Delhi. I'm an Indian immigrant. I have a family that worked really hard and that has put me in a position to be able to take risks. And I finally, for some reason, believe that I can do exactly what I set out to. That, to me, is what I realized with this project. It's the realization that you can be a 5'7" Indian kid from New Delhi and I can still be pretty as hell.
Right.
And that, to me, is the confidence you need to take shots. I think the biggest thing is just to believe in yourself, believe in your ideas, and bet on it, because ultimately everything with Indify, that's now a funded, backed company with multiple people working on it in an office in Manhattan, started on the back of an airplane menu, and then was an idea that was iterated on with my co-founders and team, that none of this would exist without. Ultimately, the music thing, people kept telling me it was a ridiculous idea to do both, and now we have 160,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, like millions of plays. Like, there's no reason to deny the belief that Indify can affect millions of artists and the music can affect millions of people, and we can do it at the exact same time.